Amy Gray. So I'm going to introduce the other two that are up here on the panelists. So we've got Scott Sherry in the white shirt. Scott is the Director of Quality Assurance with Standard Functional Food Groups. I'm going to please ask Scott to provide a little history of who his company is and what products they produce, and then we'll go on to the next panelist as an introduction. Scott, could you briefly just describe that, please?
Sorry. Just to give you a little background, Standard Functional Foods Group started out as Standard Candy Company in 1902, and in 1912 they made the first, and it's in the History Channel, so this is real stuff, the first multi-component confection in the United States, which is called the Goo Goo Cluster Bar. And that was in 1912, so we've been making those bars for a little over 100 years now. The Goo Goo Cluster Bars, are only about 2% of what we do right now. So as a company, we make bars for little-known companies like Kellogg's, General Mills. We do have a customer called Weight Watchers. You guys might have heard of those folks. We make bars for other companies that are not as big. They're more direct-to-consumer, like Medifast, Nutrisystem. We also make bars for Atkins Nutritionals. We used to make a ton of bars for Atkins Nutritionals, and then things went down after Dr. Atkins died, and now that business is coming back up again, so that program is very popular. But interesting thing about it, so you can tell, I'm only 25 years old, but I've been in the food industry for 100 years. That's why my hair is white. My operation that I manage the quality and food safety on has no kill step. All of the bars are cold form bars, and it's a cold process. So we rely on water activity, sanitation, good GMPs for our food safety, and of course ingredients are extremely important as well. So the three things that scare me are consumers, ingredients, and employees. So with that note, I'll let you move on here.
Thank you. Our other panelist is David Burks. He is the Director of Quality Assurance for Bay's Bread. David, would you give a little background, please?
Yes, ma'am. My name is David Burks. I work for Bay's Southern Bread, which is a bakery in Lebanon, Tennessee. We make the sourdough bread for Cracker Barrel. The company was originally founded in 1985. It started in, my boss is sitting in the back, Mr. Bay. It was started by his parents, believe it or not, in the basement of their house back in 1985. They've grown to their current location. When they first started, they were making, Cracker Barrel at that time had 42 stores, making about 800 loaves a day. Now they've grown that business to where we have two facilities. One facility is dedicated just making the white sourdough bread. The other facility makes rolls for food service, school systems, stuff like that. As also we make the wheat sourdough bread and the croutons that you get on the salads there. Currently we're making about 30,000 loaves a day. So it's a tremendous, you hear about the mom and pop stories, you know, how the growth, phenomenal store. If you go to the Wilson County Fair, in the Fiddler's Grove, there is a building that has the original stove or oven that company was based on and what started. It's not the original house or basement, but it is in a house and it has the original stove.
Thank you. All right, earlier today, the audience was asked if they had any questions for the panelists to fill out the form that was on your table and place in the bag. I only did receive one question, but believe me, I'm prepared, so we'll have plenty of questions to ask the panelists. But I'll go ahead and ask the question that one of the audience members had submitted. And I would like, from my standpoint, I'd like input from regulatory on this same question. As far as who wants to answer the question, I'm not going to call out names. If you feel you would like to answer the question, please grab the mic to answer it. So the question here is it acceptable to use a paperless system for maintaining records? So can you speak to how you operate today from that question, please?
I use paperless and paper. Everything that we do is paper. And just trying to think, even though I transfer some things over to the computer, I know back in law school that the handwritten stands up in court better than computer. And so I don't know, I just kind of, with that theory, I use ink on all of our forms and they're signed.
Okay.
But to answer whether you can or not under HACCP, I don't know. I believe that you just you would have to carry, like we carry clipboards around to inspect various inspections, and it would be pretty difficult to say 100% would be paperless.
Yeah, I'll make an attempt. We don't have a paperless system in our facility. We're partially paperless in some areas, and then we have paper in other areas, just like Bill was talking about there a little bit ago. Hope you don't mind me calling you Bill. But the problem, I think, really with that we've encountered is, first of all, our IT group is okay at best. I know none of them are here, but they've heard me say that before multiple times. So it's information lack of technology, but the hard part it really is having the systems in place to control the verifications and show that people have actually done what they've said they've done, and be able to document that. I think there are systems out there. I've seen places that I've visited and audited that did paperless systems and did a great job. They had tablets that they had in the facility, and people would sign off with their fingers, just like you do if you see those little card swipe things on phones at places where people have things that they sell, and they use that little square system or whatever. I'm not advertising that, but I mean it works and it's acceptable, and I think that would be acceptable if that went on. I don't want to speak for regulatory folks, but I think that if you can show them the information, or if worst case you can print it out. A lot of times that's what we do for inspections anyway. Anything that we have electronically, we end up printing out. It's just auditors seem to like that a whole lot better. So, and the FDA likes to have things that they can take with them. So, they want to have something that they can get in their hands and see and show and examine. So I would say it's doable, but it's going to be a challenge.
In a previous life at a different employer, we had a sister facility that used that, and they were 100%, and it was a USDA facility. And the company that we used was called Cat Squared. It's out of Arkansas, and the technicians had either tough books or iPads that they carried around, and the thermometers were done via Bluetooth. And there are regs. I know there are USDA regs in what you have to do in order to be paperless and the type of verification steps that you have to go through. I'm sure there's probably some in the FDA world as well. I would look at those. But the Cat Square program was very decent. It was a shop floor management program, so it was keeping track of yields at all times, as well as doing your quality checks and your SSOP checks. And you have to make sure that the sign-offs and verifications are done correctly and the timestamps are there. That's the biggest thing you got to make sure you watch for.
So would somebody from regulatory answer that question as well? If it is acceptable to go paperless? Yes, please. So FSIS accepts paperless. So I'm not going to repeat all that, but quick summary, it is acceptable if you comply to regulations. The dairy industry, bottom line is if you're able to print it out at their request, then you can go paperless. Okay, one more please. So 21 CFR Chapter 11, which talks about electronic records. Okay, I think I did a quick summary for each of those who contributed. All right, so we have a second question that was submitted. What are you doing, what is your company doing in preparation for FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act?
Right now, we're mostly just trying to get ourselves the research and find out what all is needed from us. Just in what I know to this point, I think we already have most of these things in place to some degree. Obviously, we'll have to elaborate on some of them, though.
Okay.
Next.
Would anybody else?
I'll take it.
Not all at once.
I got the grenade. Standard Functional Foods Group, we implemented a HACCP program at our facility shortly after I started there because we didn't have one. Obviously, it's grown and changed quite a bit over the years, but we used to be audited by AIB International certifying our HACCP system. They still audit us, but they audit us now in the capacity of Safe Quality Food, SQF. We became SQF Level 2 certified in 2009. In 2010, we became Level 3 certified. And Level 3 certification, if you're not familiar with that, applies HACCP principles to your quality assurance systems as well as your food safety systems. So we have quality critical control points, we have quality control points. This is all part of a documented, validated, verified system with monitoring programs in place. And we get audited every year for compliance. We've had an excellent rating, which is their highest rating since 2009 when we became certified. We are now undergoing at the direction of SQF unannounced audits every 3 years. And I'm so happy about that, my hair will probably fall out. So in other words, we think we're pretty well prepared. Most of this stuff is stuff that we've been doing for a long time. We're in the business of making food, selling it to customers, and making money by doing that. We're not in the business of killing our customers. They don't come back very often because of that. So food safety is real important to us. We've been involved in one recall, and that's a PCA recall. I hate those people. I hate the guy who was responsible for that. And that was really bad practice. It made us all look bad, and it cost us a lot of money. We never want to be in that situation again. And, our company knows it, and they live it. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question. What is the biggest challenge that your company or you face?
I can't think of one. I know that they're out there. I know, like inspecting the trucks when it comes up, you start from the, well, first item is make sure you buy, make sure that we buy a HACCP product to start with, because that means that company or processor's doing what we're doing, or as HACCP facilities. And we inspect the trucks, and if it's not clean, you don't receive it, and you go on through production. And of course, I don't have a turnover with employees. I've never lost one since it's my 10th year in business, and so I don't have a threat. Of course, that could be a problem. That could be a safety problem there if you had a turnover of employees. And I don't have any pilfering with outside people in. I just, maybe I'm not answering it, but I don't think I have a, I have a challenge.
David, would you like to share?
To be quite honest, I'm very fortunate. We're a small family-ran company. The owners are phenomenal to work with. They're supportive of the things I bring to them, and being assistant. The employees that we have there have been there a long time, so you don't have the turnover. You don't have to deal with continually training them. They know what to do. They know what's expected of them, and you're very fortunate. And that's, trust me, that's a big stress relief compared to some of the places that other people work that you hear about. You're worried about this, you're worried about that, and that is a very calming to know that you don't have to worry about some of those things. Now, that doesn't mean that you relax on them. You're always continuing, striving to improve, see what you can improve on in your food safety culture. What can you do to help make things better? You have to, in order to stay on top of it.
Okay. Another question for the panel. So where do you find updated food safety or regulatory information to make sure that your company meets current standards?
One of the things that I do is, follow the blogs. I know Dr. Chapman was here. I follow the BARF blog. I've followed that for years. Get your email alerts from your regulatory folks. The FDA sends out regulatory emails to keep you updated. USDA, FSIS does the same thing. Those type of websites, those type of blogs, those type of emails are very beneficial in keeping up what is coming. So you're able to stay on top of it and relay that to your ownership or your management staff.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Same as him.
I got it. Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I also subscribe to email services that send me information all the time. But those of you here probably already get a lot of information through magazines that get sent out, publications, food safety magazines and stuff. You can also get those electronically. I don't have time or want to waste the paper of having them sent to me, so I always opt to have them, e-magazines. So that makes it a whole lot easier. But of course, there are all kinds of good websites. The FDA's websites may be a little tedious at times to get around and find certain things, but you can find them, and the information's there, and it's getting better and easier to understand. You don't have to have a law degree anymore to do that. So that helps quite a bit. Thank you, FDA. So that's really what works best for our company.
Ditto.
Well, one good source, I agree with those responses there, is the audit firms. I'm with AIB, and they are great about sending out information and changes as they occur. Also, we get a newsletter each month, and there's other companies that I don't do business with, and SF sends out one. In fact, they had a web seminar just about a couple of weeks ago, and it was one that didn't cost. Now, all these people send out information a lot of times, and they want to have you to participate in their training or their seminars, and you can always go to those, but there's a lot of free stuff that comes through the computer, and lots of it comes from AIB to me, plus other sources, some of the food magazines. There's always good articles. And now with this Food Modernization Act, getting into place, there's some information regarding that comes through too from a regulatory as well.
I do have a few more questions on my list, but I want to take the opportunity for those who are not able to fill out the green sheet. Does anyone in the audience have a question for these panelists?
The bars related to no kill step. What does your company do in terms of source verification and using a variety of ingredients? How do you evaluate that from a microbiological standpoint?
Yeah, if I would have answered the question about what is your what is it, your biggest challenge or something like that, one of the things you're most concerned about, I would have to say the ingredients. From my process, definitely, ingredients are everything, and ingredients are the one things that really killed us in 2009. And we have every nut variety that goes into our bars, plus peanuts, plus all the other allergens, except fish, shellfish, and egg. Right now, everything goes into that bar. So, it's a management nightmare there. But it is definitely a challenge, and we put systems in place where not only do we require that each one of our ingredient vendors are certified, we are asking them to be SQF, BRC, some sort of GFSI certified, but we will accept a third-party audit if it's like an AIB or if it's a Silica audit or somebody that's a recognized third-party auditing group. We require that they submit to us that information along with a questionnaire that we have them fill out that gives us information about the company, about their food safety systems, and then I actually go out and do a lot of inspections myself. We started doing the inspections in 2009, big surprise. I've been to a lot of peanut plants, a lot of nut plants, and That we started out with a risk-based approach. We did a risk assessment and looked for ingredients that we felt were high risk. What we found out was the high-risk ingredients were also extremely well managed for the most part by our suppliers. So what we've done is we've kind of shifted gears and we've looked at high-risk suppliers. So now the high-risk suppliers are the ones that I visit. Some of the folks that don't necessarily have as much of a food safety experience, systems in place, programs, departments. So that becomes critical. And then the cool thing about it is I've been to a bunch of different countries verifying ingredients. So I brag a little bit. I've been to Germany. I've been to Amsterdam was pretty awesome. I happened to be there on Queen's Day by accident, so there was a big party. Yeah, that was cool. New Zealand and and China. China likes fat guys. They think we're rich, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, it involves an awful lot of that kind of due diligence, and it's a challenge to find out exactly where ingredients originate, especially complex ingredients. A lot of our materials that we use are made of multiple ingredients. You'll see if you eat a bar, there's a lot of bars out there with crisp rice in it. Well, a lot of that's either soy crisp rice or it's actual rice flour that's made into crisps. But there's a lot of other ingredients in there, and some of those may be proteins that are from another country or something like that, and it's not always disclosed, so you have to dig a little bit to find that information out. So anyway, I've gone on and on again, sorry. Excuse me.
One thing that we do on our ingredients is require only American products. We don't import. With the problems that's been with importing foods being inspected, they have to be processed, produced, or grown right in America, so we don't import it. We're 100% American, 100% HACCP. We have letters to back that up from every one of them.
So another question for the panelist. Do you find it difficult to please all of your customers regarding third-party food safety audits? If you do, what is the challenge and how do you wish it would change? That was a question from Cracker Barrel, by the way.
The answer to that would be yes. No, it is difficult in the sense that, like I spoke about earlier, everybody wants the same thing with just their own little twist on it. So just trying to manage all that, and that's the one good thing I can, or the very thing that I was so pleased with SQF when it came along, was that it took all of those things that everybody wanted and just kind of consolidated them, which I'd been wanting to do for years. So I finally got my my dream come true to get all that formalized and organized into a single program that's going to please everybody.
Yes, I had was very fortunate. One of the gentlemen that I worked for that mentored me was on the board of the SQF when it first started. And the SQF was designed, I don't know if many people know this, was to be the audit to end all audits. That was the goal. Needless to say, that did not happen. You still have your regulatory audits, you still have the military audits, you still have all these other audits. A lot of people now accept SQF, BRC, the GFSI audits, because if you go to that extent, you're showing that your food safety systems are well above what is required. A lot of people have their own personal preference. I personally liked BRC better than I did SQF. Some other folks like SQF better than BRC. It's just kind of a personal preference. I think if you go to that route, you're showing that your food safety systems, that you've gone above and beyond what you're being asked to do.
Thank you. And within Cracker Barrel, we do accept any of the GFSI benchmarking scheme companies out there, such as SQF, BRC, that have been identified up here. So, yay. All right, I only have one more question. I mean, I have plenty more, but I don't want to sit here asking questions just for sake of time. So the question that I have for the panelists, this is the last one unless the audience has additional. What can the Food Safety Task Force do to facilitate training for food manufacturers out there in the industry? Or what can we do to help assist from a food manufacturing standpoint? With knowing who the audience members are here today.
For needs, for the needs, I believe going to the manufacturers or the people that's involved. And if it's HACCP, people that's in HACCP, whatever their needs are, go to them. And I think we could feed information back to them. Maybe send us a questionnaire or something. But I think you meet the needs. I think it's been a great program today, other than my part. I think everyone did a good job. We fed us some good information here today, and even our side, Amy and I was, and the panel here is a diversified, made it more of a diversity of source of information for you today.
I know speaking for our company, I really feel like the information is out there, that the government agencies have done a great job of getting the information out there, and I think a lot of it falls back on the manufacturer to be responsible for going and seeking out that information. I mean, you can come to our plant, shove it down our throat if you want, but which is probably what it takes for some of us sometimes. But I really think y'all have done a great job, and it just falls back on us, making sure we look at it.
Thank you. From my perspective, I would say definitely continue this program that you had today. I've been coming to it for several years now. I missed last year. I heard it was even bigger last year than this year, but each year it seems like more people are participating in this program. And I know there's a lot of learnings here and a lot of interfaces, and it's a good opportunity to meet people in the industry and meet some of the folks that are in the regulatory aspects of controlling and monitoring our jobs and our companies. And so that's extremely helpful. As far as training help, if there were some trainings that were offered and that, our companies could get the Food Safety Task Force to give us some of that training, we'd be happy to look into that. We're always looking for more and better training. We don't let anybody come into our plant except for visitors that are escorted unless they've been through a full day of training about what a food plant is, what a food plant does, and how to behave in a food plant, and what you have to do to be safe and be food safe. So we're always looking for additional opportunities for other people to come in and basically reinforce what we're already doing. So that would be great.
Just like the other folks up here have said, continue this conference. I don't know if there's other conferences that could be potentially laid out there, more as to maybe next year more of implementation. Maybe we'll know more of the finalization of the FSMA, those type of trainings, to assist with getting ready for that. Like, I think, most people that are doing SQF, BRC, AIB audits, those type of things are probably already close to being ready for it, but some of the other companies may not be there yet.
All right. Any other additional questions? Okay, go ahead, please.
You said that you sort of changed gears and went from a higher ingredient to higher suppliers, and you did a lot of traveling. And kind of touched a little bit of what Billy said, but did you find anything in common with the higher suppliers as far as geographical location, mainly, or anything in common?
That's an interesting question. No, I really didn't find a lot in common with them. It just, what we considered to be high risk initially were customers that would supply us with high volume items. That's one big risk, because if we're getting a lot of that ingredient, then that means we've got it in a lot of our products. So, what we did find was that some of the smaller companies were the ones that we needed to spend time with. What I found was we had a supplier that was a fairly new supplier for food contact packaging. We use film to wrap our bars. You guys have seen bars, you know what they're like. This was a food contact packager packaging supplier that had some beautiful new equipment. Everything was nice facility. I walked in there to audit it. It was a little bit smaller operation and had been recommended to us by one of our customers. That's another thing that kind of gets a little touchy too, because a lot of our supplies come to us either from the customer or a customer asks us to use a certain supplier. I went into this supplier, and one of the questions I asked in our initial interview was, okay, let's just say this film that you're using to make our food contact packaging comes in, you make our packaging, you send us a couple million impressions of the product, and the supplier to the film calls you up and says there's arsenic or something nasty on that film. How do you trace that back and let me know that I received some of that film with arsenic on it, and and how many impressions, and where else did it go? And I saw the blood rush from his head. I knew I had a problem. So, this is one of those things that, every once in a while you'll find out. So, the bigger food packaging suppliers, they already had those systems in place. They had the traceability. They did the mock recalls. This is something that they hadn't really set up or thought about yet. They were doing mostly, sleeves that went on top of non-food contact, cartons or whatever. So, I didn't find anything really geographically in common. And in fact, some of the foreign suppliers that I've been to had some of the most amazing programs I had ever seen in some of the cleanest facilities I'd ever been in. Went to New Zealand because their dairy is fantastic. You probably don't know this, maybe you do, but some of the New Zealand, and I'm not saying anything's bad about dairy here, because I know there's some dairy people here who probably want to throw rocks at me, but New Zealand dairy has some of the lowest levels of heavy metals in the dairy products. So if you're looking at products, which we have to make sure that we're compliant with those crazy people out in California that have, that Proposition 64 where you have to watch the heavy metals, and that is something you have to consider. Your ingredients have to add up to be less than the heavy metals requirement in California. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of people just waiting to sue you and try to make money off of that law. So, anyway, another tangent, sorry. But to answer your question, no, I didn't really find anything, geographically in common. It was really more about the size of the company and how long they'd been in business and who they had that helped them get to where they needed to get for food production or food contact production. We consider our food contact packaging as an ingredient, and it has to be mock recalled at least once a year. So,
Thank you. All right, so I believe everybody has received a survey sheet. Is that correct? Okay, so if you don't mind filling that out, you can leave it on the table or put it on the table on your way out, either or, up to you. But again, appreciate everybody's time today. I hope everybody got what they wanted out of the program, and we all hope to see you next year. Thank you.